Welcome to PHP Podcast. I'm Mike.
And this is Orlando, and we're on episode 251.
Yeah.
And this is a themed episode.
That's right. And today we're going to be talking about something awesome. What are we talking about? I don't even know. I haven't even checked to see what our topic is.
So I don't know where we're going to go with this one. That's usually not how you want to intro.
Okay.
things.
So here's if you're tuning in, you hear guy number one say, I don't know what we're talking about. Guy number two says, yeah, I don't know where this is going. So we're definitely off to a great start here.
Yeah, but so here's why. So I talked about this with Mike earlier before we recorded. It's like I see there's a lot of new resellers in the reselling space, like a lot. I haven't seen this much recently, and I think it's a result of the economy, right? And I'm not here to talk about politics or where we're at and inflation and all that, but things are changing. I mean, even if you look at the stuff that people are selling on Facebook Marketplace, on OfferUp, you definitely see a shift. People are trying to sell a lot more. People are trying to get on eBay and Mercari and Amazon and Depop and all these platforms a lot more.
Yeah, there's a couple avenues people are taking too. Like you can see there's some people who are they're seeing the hustle of reselling. They're trying to get into that. For various reasons, maybe to pay bills, maybe because they're trying to become millionaires, whatever the reason is. And then you get some people who are probably just like, this technology is becoming more and more accessible and mainstream. So people are like, yeah, I might as well throw something on OfferUp and Facebook Marketplace. And, oh, what's this Poshmark thing? And so just the average everyday person, kind of like, I feel like when eBay first started, it was kind of like, I feel like a lot of people would just randomly put stuff up on eBay and buy things from eBay. Almost feel like that's where we're at. So it's almost like the everyday person is doing it along with the people who are trying to get into like the grind. They're ready to become hustle millionaires.
Well, it's just, I talk about change, and we'll talk about this in our update episode. Like right now, I think I saw a report that Mercari is linking up with Uber for local delivery.
Oh man.
And it's like, what?
That's a thing.
Like, what is going, like, well, that's outside of the box, like completely outside. I would have never thought of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's smart.
I know, but anyways, I say all this because I feel that there's a lot of what did we say before? We don't sell dreams, right? We're very big on the podcast of not selling dreams, of keeping it real.
We're gonna be real.
Now, but we also, there's the other side of I think we do a good job of celebrating. We have our hustles of the week, and we talk about how we're scaling, and obviously you've seen our growth. Mike's business is growing, my business is growing. I've even I'm now on a larger property. I'm able to do more. I've been able to put my money into investments. And so you've seen our journey over the last 3 years, but I wanted to title this episode, The Reality of Reselling. And I think there's three things I wanted to discuss, and let us know your comments. Like when we go through these, go like, Orlando, you're so off. Mike, you have no idea what you're talking about. Or like,
Whoa, nobody ever says I don't know what I'm talking about. And if,
I just
if
had to
they
throw
do
that
say
out there.
They're wrong.
All right. So I kind of looked at, okay, in reselling, you're going to lose. In reselling, you're going to win. And in reselling, you're going to grow. You're going to do those three things. I think those, as long as you continue, will happen. The question is, will you change with those? So initially, I talked about losing, right? I think in the beginning of reselling, unless you are the ultimate, most perfect person, which there are people like that do exist. I will say there are people that whatever they touch turns to gold and they don't lose. I know a couple of people like that every investment that they've made, they just win.
I don't know if I believe that. I believe that's what you see. And
okay, possible.
I think there's a lot of uphill battles that were fought behind the scenes.
Okay, all right, true. All right, so that may be true. It's kind of like, when you go on like Instagram or Facebook, right? All we see is the highlights. So maybe I'm just seeing the highlights. Right. But listen, if you're new to reselling, or even if you're an experienced reseller, and comment below, let us know. Was this you? You will pick up a lot of stuff in reselling, whether it's for eBay, whether it's for Amazon, whether it's private label, wholesale, whatever it is, whichever avenue you take, you will pick up a lot of stuff that doesn't sell.
Yeah. I mean, I could, especially if you're first starting out, you're looking at things and
what a way to start in the negative.
No, I mean, I guess that's good. We'll start with the negative and end with the positive. But you're going to buy things that you hope will sell and that they don't necessarily sell, or you're like, oh, this is cool. And I think the only people who are probably not susceptible to this are people who are already in like a hobby or niche where they know something really, really well, and they are able to like collect, and they know like this thing that I'm getting. And if they're not like branching out to other niches, but they're like just into like, 18th century pottery and they collect it themselves and they're like, oh, this thing, I found it at the store and know it's going to sell for this much money because I'm already in a community that sells this stuff. So that's probably the only time that you're going to be able to avoid the picking up stuff that you're not going to be able to sell. The rest of us, and if those people branch out into other niches, you're going to end up buying things that are cool and great and maybe have sold in the past. And maybe you see them listed on eBay. And you're like, look, people list these things for $50, but you don't actually check to see what the sell-through rate is. And that the last one sold, 6 months ago, and there's thousands of them listed right now. So there's a lot of things you might not know to look for. Or you're going to buy an item that you get home and you realize, oh, this has stains in it. I didn't know to look in this section, or I didn't know to check for this type of damage on these types of items. So there's definitely a huge learning curve in the beginning. And I kind of look at it like it's the cost of the education. Like when you go to school, to college, and you pay, $40,000, $60,000, whatever it is to get a 4-year degree to learn how to do whatever it is you're doing. You're paying a lot of money to learn something where they're trying to teach you the mistakes not to make. Mm-hmm. And when you start reselling, you're going to end up probably making couple $1,000 worth of mistakes, but you're learning from it, right?
Yeah, no, agree.
Never picking up this again.
And I will tell you, I still have stuff in my store from, I don't know, 7 years ago. And that's a whole nother discussion.
Get rid of it, man.
Should it still be in my store?
No.
If it still makes me money, it's all good. If I barely paid for it, if I paid like $1, it's still worth being in my store. It's probably worth being in my store for 20 years. Anyways, that's a whole nother conversation. Here's the thing. When I first started, I did watch YouTube. I did watch shows. I listened to people, and I still picked up junk, right? Or I try to be like someone else. So I saw, Tommy Bahama's a perfect example. Tommy Bahama was the hot shirt when I was really trying to get into reselling. What was that, 5-6 years ago? And I remember, pretty much anything that was Tommy Bahama, anything that was Hawaiian, I pretty much was picking up, and I thought it was all going to sell because I saw all these people on YouTube selling it. I thought, this for sure is gonna make me money. And guess what? It didn't. Right. And even till this day, I will pick up stuff. I mean, for Amazon is the one that I think a lot of people see on social media, and you see people make these huge purchases and they're like, look at the store. I dropped 4K and I'm going to flip this 4K into, 8K and it's going to be great. But a lot of times you don't see how much they don't sell. Right. And there's cycles when it comes to Amazon selling. Like if you can get in early on something, you're going to make good money. Right. If right before there's a bunch of sellers, you're going to make good money. If you get at the height, you're still going to make good money. But the question is, when does the hype end? When is the hype over? Because sometimes you'll go on Amazon and you'll see the rankings really low and you're like, oh, this stuff is selling a lot, and you'll buy a ton of it. And by the time it gets to the FBA warehouse, the ranking may have doubled and may have gone up. And so therefore that item's not going to sell as fast. And next thing you know, you're sitting in an item that you're just hoping to break even, or even at a loss.
But a big part of it too is just a change in your mindset. I know that's probably we'll talk more about in the growth section, but the reality is, you're gonna make these mistakes. But the nice thing is when you realize your business, when you're making an investment on 10 different things, especially for something like Amazon, different items you're gonna buy to try and sell, you really only need 1 or 2 home runs, right? And then as long as you break even on 70% of the items, and then you can have 1 or 2 failures, right? So if you're breaking even a lot of the time and you're learning and you're making some mistakes, but then you get that 1 or 2 home runs that more than pays for everything else, you're good to go. But one of the things that new sellers make, a mistake that is often made, is they go all in on something. And again, we've talked in the past about times when you might need to go all in on something, but you go all in on something without having done the research, without knowing for sure. And next thing you know, you've got a garage full of fingerlings and, some credit card debt.
Here in our display.
and some credit card debt. And you're like, well, I guess reselling isn't for me, right? So you got to be careful because it's really easy to get pulled into the hype. But the more you see it, by the time you've gone through your 5th, 6th, 7th Q4 and you've seen some items, they're going to go up. Some items are going to come down. Some you think are going to be great hits and they're not. And the thing you were like, man, ends up being the great hit, right? So the more you experience that, and so much of this is just experience. So when you're first starting out, you're going to lose money. And honestly, even as an experienced reseller, you're going to lose money on certain items. You know,
yeah.
I mean, I can go to the garage sale and I can think I'm getting a great deal and buying something for $20 that I can sell for $100, $200. And then I get home and I realize like something's wrong with it. It doesn't work. It's not even worth trying to list for parts. Right. And it's like, well, I lost $20 here. And those things happen, but I have enough of the time where that doesn't happen that I'm okay. So you learn over time what to look for, and you're going to have those fails. But that's the thing that I think, not even just for new resellers, but just resellers in general, is recognizing that part of the business is there's going to be a loss of money, not just in the beginning, but throughout the entire reselling experience. Every business is going to have some transactions, some deals where they're not as profitable as others, or they potentially even lose money. And when you start to look at your business as a business and you're looking at a year's bottom line, as opposed to how did I do on one item? How did I do this 1 week, which could be good metrics that you can use to adjust. You know, maybe I need to move into another niche. Maybe I need to adjust my shipping costs somehow. Maybe I need to figure out whatever it is. But when you start to look at your business and you recognize you're going to lose money on things, maybe shipping prices increase, maybe it's harder for you to source a certain item, that's going to be okay. But that's the reality of reselling. I think that's what a lot of the gurus and the people who get into reselling don't think. They think it's going to be, everything's going to be a win. And the first loss you have when you think everything's going to be a win is going to be devastating. And then you realize that you're going to lose more frequently than you thought. And that's why I think a lot of people leave, is they don't have the realization that there's going to be some tough times in reselling. You're going to flop. I look at some items in my store and I'm like, yeah, that was a big fail. Shouldn't have bought those. Those are kind of just sitting there. And then I make a ton of money on another item. And I'm like, all right, well, you know, as long as this keeps happening and I watch my bank account grow, I'm okay.
Yeah, agreed. And you know, I'll give you an example. 2 Q4s ago, I went all in on a lot of apparel for Amazon, and the ranking was low. And I thought, you know, this is a win-win. Like, there's no way I'm in a niche market. Not everybody's thinking about apparel. Because I was thinking about January, and I kept thinking, hey, if it doesn't sell during Q4, it's gonna at least sell in January. And guess what? It didn't sell. Even though I followed the ranking was, I believe everything I bought was below 50,000. I want to say most of it was under 10,000 in ranking, which is really good for apparel. And guess what? It didn't sell. So I had a $3,000 to $4,000 loss to report for 2019. But here's the beauty of it. I got all that back, and then COVID, what should I even say that word? Something happened to us in 2020.
Yeah, the 2020 thing.
The 2020 thing. And guess what? Supply chains were broken. And where were people going to get workout apparel? They were going online. So it was not a complete loss. This other thing I want to remind everyone is that you may lose in the beginning. Now, there's some things that are just going to be a loss, especially when you're thrifting and garage selling. Like, they may never go up in value. But if you're buying stuff that's new, there's chances, unless you're buying stuff that's like a terrible brand or terrible quality, it's going to sell eventually. At some point in time, you will make profit. I had another item where I dropped 4K on, and I got one of those letters that told me to stop selling. And I was like, oh, I guess I'm stuck. And guess what? Later on, the company laxed their rules on stuff, and people were selling it. And then I went back and I sold it all in, and I made major profit. So you have to understand there's going to be loss. Sometimes you'll be able to recover those losses. But like Mike said, looking at the big picture, you know, how many items are in my store now? How much has my business grown? What have I been able to do? Okay. So all those opportunities, like you said, were opportunities to learn and to keep moving. All right. Now, this is the one that I just hate it when this happens. There will be a time you will be swindled, directly or indirectly. So it may look like you're making, like, I make bulk deals all the time, right? And I do them, you know, usually local deals. I don't share a lot of them on Instagram, but, you know, this wasn't, nobody was trying to swindle me. But if you follow us on Instagram, I bought a bunch of baseball gloves. I want to say like 130 baseball gloves. And I paid $1 to a piece. So I'm still going to win in the end. I've already made all my money back on that major purchase. But here's the thing. Out of those 130 gloves, I want to say 30 of them were not sellable. I couldn't do it. I mean, they were falling apart. They were flaking. And there were bugs in some of them. And it was just bad. And I had to toss out a lot of them. Now that was an indirect right? I didn't necessarily get swindled. It was an indirect thing. Like I just, they knew that a lot of the gloves weren't worth that much. That's why they probably priced it so low, right? And they knew that a lot of the gloves had issues, and so it wasn't for them. It was like, hey, if we sell it cheap, maybe somebody will overlook all the issues and buy it for this cheap price. And Orlando came along and did that for them, right? But I've had other scenarios, right, where I will buy something, and the biggest one is you buy something that's new in box, whether it's local or on eBay, right? And you buy it new, and you're thinking, hey, I'm gonna resell it, right? So I'm gonna sell on eBay or I'm gonna sell on Amazon. And this happened to me with my clippers that were big that I sold. I sold a ton of clippers at Costco, and I think I shared this before on the podcast, but a lot of them were returned. But the people that returned them to Amazon were super deceptive in that it looked like it was never opened. And And when I got them back, I'm like, hey, I could flip these pretty easy. I just got to list them back on Amazon. And sure enough, I had so many of them that Amazon banned me from selling that item. Luckily, they didn't suspend me. Luckily, they didn't ban my store. And it was because of too many issues. And had I been
and
more,
as far as a lot of people were concerned, you were the one doing the swindling.
Yeah, it was me.
Yeah.
And I didn't even, to me, I mean, if you were to look at these boxes, they were pristine. I mean, the way they must have opened it carefully from the bottom. There's ways you can open things so it looks like you never opened it, right? And that's what must have happened. They even had so on the zippers, you have the two ends of the zippers that have like a zip tie, right? That it's the seal. Like the zip ties were there. That's what's crazy. So either I got swindled on the return, or I was swindled or scammed when the delivery happened. Like the buyer was lying. Do you get what I'm saying? And on Amazon, if a buyer says something that's crazy as these items were used, usually you just refund and you move on. Like you don't want them to make a fuss.
Yeah.
So and then you're gonna get scammed. Have you been scammed before?
Yeah, I mean, I've had a few kind of insignificant ones, but one that was like kind of annoying. I found a Soda Stream. My wife and I use Soda Stream like crazy. We love carbonated water, and I found somebody selling them online new, and they were super cheap on eBay. Like I'm talking like normally you'd spend $70 for these, but it was only like $13.50, and I'm like, I cannot believe this deal. But I looked at the person's like account, and I mean, I didn't look in deep, but I'm like, they've got like a couple hundred stars. They're all 5-star review. Like this person seems legit. I'm buying from them, right? So I bought like 4 of them. I'm like, this is such a good deal, and I'm gonna flip these because they only had like 12 of them in stock. So I'm like, I don't know what happened. Maybe they fell off the back of a truck or something. I don't know. So sure enough, I ended up getting a message from eBay saying like, we think that one of your orders has a problem. We're looking into this account, and it was a scam account that somebody had gotten a password of an old seller. Because then when I actually went in and looked at that person, they hadn't sold anything in like 6 years. So it had been a long time since they had sold anything. So their feedback was not recent feedback. So somebody hacked into an account and started selling things on their account that was just fake stuff in order to get a bunch of money. So yeah, I guess what triggered it to eBay is they probably had like thousands of sales within like a day. And eBay was like, wait a minute. And so they stopped it. But my brother-in-law, when we got him into trying to sell on eBay, he had some customers trying to scam him. Another person we had, they seemed to go after new sellers quite a bit.
Oh,
the scam artists and the scam people. So yeah, I've definitely had my fair share of experiencing people trying to scam and swindle. But it's part of doing business. And one of the things is a lot of times if it's too good to be true, it probably is not true. It's probably too good to be true. So you kind of got to realize that. But occasionally you get lucky, right? So you almost have to roll the dice and say, you know what? Is it worth this $10 gamble that this is a legitimate Nintendo Switch that's brand new that's selling for $10 on Facebook Marketplace? I don't know. Maybe it's worth it. And then you get scammed. And
I've lived long enough that if it's too good to be true, it's just too good to be true. And it might be true every once in a while. But is it worth rolling the dice?
Yeah, right? And for those things, I know it's not worth it. But what if it's a Facebook Marketplace ad and it's like just a room full of all the stuff that you'd want to sell, and someone's like trying to get rid of this stuff, $100 for everything. You might be like, that sounds too good to be true. I'm checking it out.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I agree. If you watch our recent YouTube, the one I dropped at garage sales, and you should check it out. It was kind of crazy. Like I went to a place and it was all this Mickey Mouse stuff. And I thought it was too good to be true how low the prices were, but she really was just trying to offload stuff. And I'll share this in our update episode, but some of the stuff she sold before I got there, I'm like, what did I miss out on? So anyway, stay tuned for that episode. All right. So I do believe you're going to lose. I think it depends. It depends. If you're just slow and steady, like, hey, like when I first started, right? I made a bet with two other guys that we're going to use $20 for the entire year. And whoever has the most amount of money at the end, we'll take everybody else out to dinner. And so if you lost that $20, you're out of the race. Well, that $20 turned into 40, turned into 100, turned into 200, turned into 100 listings, 200 listings, 500 listings. And then, where we are today. Now, at that point, I wasn't losing any money. I was just taking the money I made from garage sales, buying more stuff, listing it, selling, buying more stuff, listing. But there came a point, right, where I was making bigger purchases. And that's when things got riskier, right? Because you're spending more money, or you're buying, or you're, things at the thrift store that you'd only say, hey, I'm only going to spend $5, $10. And then you're like, hey, I'm going to buy this for $50. Right. So, for example, one time I bought a hockey jersey. I thought it was an official USA hockey jersey. And I paid $50 for it. And I thought I could flip it for $300. I went home. I checked the tags. There was a Nike tag and a Reebok tag on it. It was a terrible fake. Like everywhere I looked, like there was just issues on it. And so it's bound to happen, because what happens too is you start making more money. So you're like, hey, I can take bigger risks. It's kind of scary. Maybe not everybody's like that. Maybe I'm just cut like that. That when I start making more money, I take bigger risks with my money, because I start believing that to make more money, I got to spend more money. Right. And I could scale up faster by dropping a lot more money on stuff. And usually that's the way it is. Like you have to go all in. You have to take risks. You have to be willing to lose thousands to make thousands. You have to be willing to lose millions to make millions, and so on. At least that's my thought. I don't know. A lot of people say that. Maybe you disagree. Let us know in the comments. But be aware that you will lose some kind of money. Like it's not going to be a straight arrow going all the way up and you're just growing. There will be dips, and there'll be some major dips on the way up as you're scaling your business.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, before we get moving, I want to talk about, when you'll win. But before we do that, one way you could win is if you go to buymeacoffee.com/pure hustle and become part of our group, our membership. What do we call this? What is the?
This is the coffee club, man.
The coffee club. And thank you so much. We keep getting members each week, and we're appreciative of all of you. You can sign up for less than a cost of, I would say, based on inflation right now, pretty soon, less than a cup of coffee at 7-Eleven possibly, to just support us and say thank you so much. Or you can just buy us a few cups of coffee, say, hey, thanks so much for this episode. If you go to the link below, or you go to buymeacoffee.com/pure hustle, definitely helps us out. We are planning a Zoom here pretty soon. It is getting to the end of the month. Mike and I just need to discuss when, and messages will go out through Buy Me a Coffee with the Zoom link. And so we can all chat and discuss and see how everybody's doing. It'll be a great time of Q&A. Usually Mike and I come up with the topics to discuss. And again, we're not gurus, but we've been doing this for a little while. So we know a little something here and there. And I would say Mike and I learn way more from the community than what we have to give. And so the community itself is worth it. So again, buymeacoffee.com/pure hustle.
Yeah.
All right. Here's the other thing about reselling. You will win. You will win. I 100%, not financial advice, guarantee you will win. But there's a few things you got to do, right? You got to research. You got to make sure that you know what you're picking up. But here's the thing. If you're going to a garage sale and you're spending $1 or $2 and you research it on eBay and it's sold multiple times, the sell-through rate is there and it's selling for good money, it's going to sell and you're going to make money. And then you're going to take that money and you're going to go to next week, you're going to go to a thrift store and you're going to go garage sale and you're going to go sourcing again. And you're going to sell and you're going to make money. The process is pretty simple, right? As long as you follow the right steps, you should win.
Yeah.
No, I would say a lot of the time.
Yeah. One of the nice things about reselling is there's a pretty direct correlation between the amount of work and time and energy you're putting in and the financial output you get out. That's not the case for a lot of jobs, right? Like a lot of jobs, you can work harder and harder and harder and harder. And unless it's like hourly pay and you're just working more like time, then you might make a little bit more money because you're getting overtime. But like if you're just putting in your 8 hours and you like slack that 8 hours versus you go and you grind for 8 hours, you're not going to see a bigger paycheck. Now, over time, over years, that might help you to get the right connections and get promoted, and all those things are definitely possible. However, in reselling, one of the great things about winning and reselling is if you're putting in the 8 hours and you're researching and you're putting in the work and you're getting the listings done and you're taking pictures and you're shipping things out on time and you're leaving feedback and you're doing all these things, the money's going to go up. Like the more you do it, there's like a direct correlation between the amount of effort and energy you're putting in and how much money you're going to get back. So, but along with that is, I think sometimes when people hear win, it's like they think almost like gambling or lottery, like it's just going to come. Like it's just easy, it's just going to come, but it's the hustle, right? You're going to work really hard and it's going to pay off.
And then the nice thing about reselling too is that there's the unexpected. There's still the treasure in, right? Like where you go, hey, let's say even on Amazon, you're scanning in a store and you find an item and there's only like 5 people on this item. And this item you can buy for $10. You can flip it for 50 and it's consistent. Like you could sell it before you leave the store. Like those things happen, right? It's all about being consistent. Also, you can be at a garage sale, right? And you find something and it's $1 and you can flip it for 100 or 200, or you go on local deals. Like the possibilities are endless. And that is one of the realities of reselling that I know I would say keep me motivated, right? I feel that I've always said this, if this reselling thing becomes a job for me, I'm out. Like I don't want to do this anymore. Like I might as well go back to the 9 to 5, because if it feels like work, I might as well work in a place that it's a steady paycheck and I don't have to go through the stresses of losing, right? Because we already talked about you will lose, right? But here I want to talk about winning. Like, and so what happens too is as you grow, as you keep moving as a reseller, right? As you keep going to garage sales, you keep going to thrift stores, or if you're doing Amazon, you're doing retail arbitrage, or you're doing private label, or you're doing wholesale, whichever model you're using, the more you do it, I believe the more consistent your wins will show up.
Yeah. I mean, there's going back to that idea of like the correlation, the direct connection, I guess I should say, rather than not just correlation, but a connection between the work you're putting in and the financial reward you're getting at the other end of that. Is the more consistent you are with doing the research, the more consistent you are actually going out and sourcing, and the more items you have in your store, the more sales you're going to have. And we've used the example over and over of, a store only sells one item, unless somebody is going in looking for that one particular item you're selling, that store is not going to be getting sales. But, I like to go to stores like Target and Costco and Walmart, where they've got anything you can possibly need, unless it's like a random thing and you got to go somewhere special, right? But they've got the majority of the stuff. And the more your store becomes like that, the more that your store has, and maybe it is in a niche, right? Like maybe like, I don't want to have a store that has hundreds of different niches, but if your shoes, right? You've got shoe sizes that go from, 5 all the way up to 14, or you only getting size 10 shoes, right? Because if you got one good deal on size 10 shoes, your sales are going to be a lot slower than if you've got size 9s and 11s also, right? Because you're reaching out to a wider, you're spreading a wider net. And so the more consistent you are in sourcing, the more consistent you are in listing. Part of that is algorithm. Part of that is eBay wants to see activity on their site. Every platform, every website wants to see activity on their website. So the more activity you've got going in there, the more sales, the sell-through rate, all of those things are going to trigger. And so the more consistent you are, the more wins you're going to have. So if you feel like, hey, I feel like I've had a slow week, a slow month on eBay, maybe it's the consistency, right? It's how much am I putting in? Am I listing as much? Am I listing several items a day, or has it been a couple of weeks since I've listed? Because as you consistently get that work in, those wins come more often. When I first started reselling, it was like every week I'd be like, oh, I got to sell. Orlando, I had this item and it sold, right? And you're
Mike
like,
never shows me anymore.
And it's like, oh, cool, you got to sell. Congratulations, right? But it was like a big deal because it was like, I've got 12 items listed and one of those items sold. Now I get sales every day. And so it's not, maybe if it's like I got a $400 sell off a $5 item, I'll tell Orlando that. But otherwise, your wins come they almost become commonplace, and that's a good thing. That's a good place to be.
No, agreed. And so what ends up happening is that begins to motivate you to go out there and get more, right? Because, and we'll talk about this in our last part, the fact that you're growing in knowledge, right? And so you are going to consistently find more wins. The more you're out there, the more you're sourcing, whatever avenue, whatever model you're doing, I believe you'll eventually hit turning points, right? If you stick with it. And this is where I think a lot of new resellers get caught up and a lot of resellers leave, right? And we're lucky enough. We have a great listenership where we don't get a lot of negative comments, which I'm kind of, maybe we're not, maybe if one day we ever get to the 100,000 subs, we'll get there. But
help us get to 100,000 subs
so we can deal with all the vitriol comments. But the thing is that, in reselling, there is a place where eventually you're just gonna do better. Like you're gonna end up in a better place, because to me, reselling is like you keep going and you keep building, and the more you sell, right, the more profit you make, the more you're reinvesting your business, the more you're going to source again, and you're going to keep growing. So there's always turning points, right? There's a lot of people, and going back to this, is that a lot of people start off, right, and they watch these YouTubes, and then you'll see people in the comments that are say like, oh, I did this for a month, this is trash, like this doesn't work out, this isn't, you're selling everyone a dream. Or you'll get a lot of comments of, I did this for a while, and you guys are just selling courses and blah, blah. And a lot of people like us and other influencers on YouTube get a lot of flack. And the reason being is because people give up too soon before they hit that turning point, right? They get to a certain place, and then if they just went a little bit more, if they just gave it another month, if they just experienced a Q4, if they just, got to a place where they really learned a niche, or they got to a certain amount of listings, then they would be like, no, you know what? This is actually real. And the reason why, we share this information, because we get these, is like, what do you guys share? Like, aren't you selling? Aren't you guys, hurting your own business? Aren't you hijacking yourselves and blah, blah, blah? Like, if you're true resellers, you wouldn't share what you know. But here's the thing. The reason we share is because most people don't take that action. And then the people that do take that action, a lot of them, and there's no one, it'd be interesting if somebody did a study. Maybe a PhD student out there should do a full study on the effect of social media on reselling. Because I guarantee when they look out there, maybe, I'm just going to throw out there, maybe 10% of people that actually consistently are watching resellers on YouTube go and take action on what they're watching. That's just my thoughts. And take action to the fact that they don't give up. They go 3 months to a year, and after a year, they're like, you know what? This is definitely worth it. But this isn't a quick, hey, you're going to get, flips all the time. You're going to make a ton of money really fast. If you come in with that mentality, even on Amazon, you're going to end up getting out of the game. And so I do believe if you stick with it, there will be turning points where you're like, wow, I went from having 5 items to having 100 to having 200. I went from making 200 a week to making 1,000 a week. I went from being part-time and now I'm full-time. And I do think the turning points will definitely happen. So, and even you've grown, right? And we've both had steps where we've like, it's been slow and like, man, I keep listening and things aren't selling. And out of nowhere, there's a surge. And then you're like, well, it was definitely worth moving forward.
Yeah, and it kind of goes back to Richest Man in Babylon. Like, there's no real such thing as luck. I like the way it's presented. I can't remember exactly how it was, but something like, Lady Luck or the goddess of fortune or whatever. It isn't a real thing, but what is real is opportunity and the ability to act on that opportunity, right? And so what a lot of people see as luck is that somebody else was just able to take action when the opportunity came up, because opportunity is going to come up. And so that's kind of like those turning points, is when something like COVID happens or some other black swan event that may negatively or positively impact your business, you have to be at a place where you can actually act on it, right? There's a sell at this place. There's a store closing down. There's clearance happening. That somebody just listed something on Craigslist. Am I able to take action on this? And the more you're able to do that, it can become a turning point. You can find that niche that you're into. You can realize, like, you know what, like, this is my lane, or I'm glad I've been grinding in this lane for so long because now that this random event happened, I'm actually able to survive and do well, So, yeah, definitely there's been turning points. Sometimes it's like mile markers. Like you said, it's just a mental thing. The first time I got to 100 items in my store, and then 250, and then 500. And then like those milestones help push you forward and make you want to do more. Even like the podcast, there's times where, you start to get to a place where you're like, man, like it's kind of slow. And then it's like, hey, we just got like 10 more reviews on iTunes. Like people are, and then it gives you that drive, like, I can keep going, I can keep doing this. And you hit those turning points that keep you going and keep you motivated. And sometimes it's like a breakthrough, and sometimes it's just mental motivation. But either way, the only time you're going to get those and have those turning points is if you are consistent and you keep going even when it's hard, because you're going to win, but it's going to potentially be a long grind to get there.
Agreed. All right. So before we move on to our, the wins that everybody looks forward to, our hustle of the week, let's talk about another win, and it's AmericanBubbleBoy.com. Thank you to all of you that continue to buy via our link below. I really appreciate that, or the link in our bios and all our social media. AmericanBubbleBoy.com. Their prices have stayed the same. They haven't changed. I mean, the time might come, like as prices go up, but it's still the same consistent quality item, and it's still free shipping. 1-day shipping, 2-day shipping, if local pickup, whatever you need. They also have Instapacks in there. You can take a look at what those are, but check out AmericanBubbleBoy.com. I just got an order that I got really quick, and I'm telling you, it is the best deal out there for bubble wrap. So check them out again, AmericanBubbleBoy.com. There's a link below. It helps us out, helps you out, and helps you win. Also, another way that you can continue winning is by following us on social media. We are Pearsall Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. We are Pearsall Cast on Twitter and Clubhouse. You can always give us a call, 619-738-1170. That's 619-738-1170. And leave us a Google voicemail, or shoot us an email at pearsallpodcast@gmail.com. That's pearsallpodcast@gmail.com. And if you're listening to the podcast and you haven't seen our lovely mugs, come on over to YouTube, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification, and most importantly, I don't know what's the most important. I don't know if there's an order, but hit that like button. Important. It's all important. Hit that like button and leave us a comment too. Leave us a comment. Anything that we talk about, those always help us out on the algorithm. And thank you to everyone with the iTunes reviews. We're getting super close. I think last I saw we're like close to 470. We're in the under 500 club still. So getting close to 500 reviews. We are the most reviewed reselling podcast out there and continue to grow. So every review helps. I want to get us back to the 5.0 again. We're almost there.
That's all right. It's almost like, I feel like 4.9, 4.97, whatever it's more realistic. Sometimes when you see, like you're on Amazon, you see an item and you're like, wow, this has 5,000 reviews. And it's got, 4.8 stars, like, that's a good item, right? Whereas like, if you're like, here's an item that has 100 reviews and it's 5 stars, you're like, oh, that's a little sus. You know what I mean?
I don't know. Anyways, maybe.
I'm okay with it because, we're going to ruffle some feathers. And you know what? There's probably somebody out there who listens and they're like, you know what? I believe in the gurus. I think that I will become a millionaire and drive my Bugatti by, going into Ross, and all it takes is $5 and I'm going to be able to flip it in next week. And if I buy his course for 10 grand, right? And they gave us a bad review. It's fine. It is what it is.
There you go.
We reached out. We sent out like a little life preserver, like out of the boat, like, here, grab on. We'll save you. Don't sink. We believe we'll pull you back into the hustle boat. And it just didn't work.
That went in a totally different direction than I ever thought. But hey, there you go. So hit us up with those iTunes reviews. 5 stars, please. Really appreciate that. All right. It is time for our...
Come on, hustlers. It's the freaking hustle of the week. Yeah. All right. So our first hustle comes from Troy, IG handle at Mountain Man Treasures. And Troy's awesome. He's been a longtime listener of ours. He's always interacting with us and is just a great listener. So I went to a Friday garage sale and picked up a pile of trade paperback comics and some hardcovers too at around 4 p.m. That's so I don't know if the 4 p.m. is, if that's like late.
I think it's late. I think that's why he put it in there.
Nice. All right. Or if this could be like, early because they're doing like evening Friday, I get home from work and I'm selling, but I'm assuming this is late.
I'm pretty sure it's late.
So it was there before and came back at the end. So he came back later and they were ready to deal. This is a good thing. Sometimes I'll leave and say like, yeah, I might come back later. And I usually don't. Sometimes I'll leave a card. But if they're not willing to deal with me in that moment, I've got other garage sales and they're usually far away. But if there's not a lot going on, going back might be a good idea, especially if they weren't able to sell. Because sometimes people are really stubborn, right? They're like, no, I can sell it for this. And you come back a few hours later and it's like, okay, you're right. I can't sell it.
I wonder if you come back, if you just said, hey, can you send me the link when you list it on eBay? Just so I can take a look. I don't know if that would ever happen.
It's a little passive aggressive. I love it.
Sorry. Okay.
So they were selling for about $40 and the guy ended up saying, how about 25? So that makes them $1.75 a book. One in the pile was a shrink wrapped Buffy the Vampire Slayer season 10, volume 2. Wow, I loved Buffy the Vampire Slayer as a kid. That was such a great show. Listed on eBay and turned down a lot of offers and finally agreed on a price with a buyer. Sold it for $750. Oh my goodness. And it was sold via global shipping program to the UK. You know what, Troy? This couldn't have happened to a better person. That's awesome. I'm really happy that you were able to flip that. And I don't mess with the comics very often. So I'm not sure if you're like really into comics and like knew what you had there, but you probably didn't know it was worth that much if you originally didn't, wheel and deal. But the fact that you got them down from 40 to 25 on a lot of them, and one of them sold for $750. Holy cow.
Yeah. And I want to say, hey, check out his YouTube channel. He has a lot of great stuff on there too. It is called Mountain Man Treasure. And so he's growing and he goes to garage sales like we do too. Great listener of the show, always supportive, always encouraging. So check him out, Mountain Man Treasure on YouTube.
Yeah.
All right. So we got another email from Mark Mancuso, who sent us an email before for Hustle of the Week. And this was so good. I wanted to just share this because, again, I'm not a fan of always having repeat Hustle of the Week or the same people because I want to share different kinds, right? I want to celebrate other people's wins and I want to share what other people are picking up. Like they don't always have to be hey, I picked this thing for $1 and it sold for $1,000. Sometimes, hey, I picked it up for $5 and it sold for $50. Like I don't mind sharing those, but this was so good. I had to share it. So Mark Mancuso via email said, I'm just going to read the email here. I had been sitting on a small new pool pump for a year. I paid $5 at a garage sale for it. And today someone wanted to meet up and buy it for $90. We were set to meet at 11 a.m. I arrived at 10:30 to the meetup spot, but saw a sign for a yard sale a few blocks away. So it pays a bit early. Went to the yard sale and it was okay. Then I spotted a new sealed box with a large Polaris pool pump. I asked how much and they said whatever I wanted to pay. Oh, I always love it when they say that.
I don't know. Sometimes that makes me feel bad.
Well, I won't give them a number still. I'll still tell you, just give me a number. Just let me know. Like I'll wait. And
I went to one that was like donations only. This is going to an animal shelter, whatever you want to pay for whatever item. That's tough. Cause then you're like,
oh yeah, no, I agree. No, I see what you're saying. All right. So, he offered I offered $5 and they took it. I grabbed it and went to meet the guy who was to buy my old pump. Remember, he's going to sell this pump for $90, right? When I got there, he saw the Polaris one, the one he just picked up for $5 and that I just bought and wanted both of them. That's crazy. I walked away with $250. Literally held that Polaris pump for 15 minutes. I know this hustle was not big money. Yeah, it was. But this, I believe, is hustling in its truest form. Thanks. Mark Mancuso, that was incredible. Like the fact that you went somewhere, you got there early, you saw another yard sale, you picked something up and you sold the item from that yard sale to the guy that literally probably could have gone to that yard sale and found that pump and you sold it to him for $250. That's a hustle.
Oh, that's pretty.
So
that's
nice
a pretty
work there,
awesome
Mark.
story there. I love that. All right, the next one comes from Clay, IG handle at Tactical Arbitraging. I love that. Went to the store that should not be named. I was trying to find my soundboard to do the dun 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 or the but I couldn't find it.
Okay.
Anyways, I went to the store that should not be named and came across a Halo statue figure and looked up comp selling for around $100. So he picks it up for $20, cleaned it up, listed on eBay, and sold in a week for $122 with free shipping. I love that. I love that you weren't afraid to list it higher than what they've been selling for. and maybe they've been selling for, around 100 plus about $22 shipping, and you just made it 122 plus free shipping, which that
good.
alone can get you to sell. So that's awesome. $22. And even that 22, maybe you did that because you're like, I paid 22. I want to make a clean 100 on this. I want a hundo. I want to get me a nice clean hundo on this one. So good job.
No, they're all good. All right. What's yours?
So I was at a garage sale, and it was actually kind of like a neighborhood one. And so you know how it is when they're kind of spread out and you're driving and you're trying to like find where they're all at.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you drive by and you just do the drive-by glance of like, is this one worth stopping?
I do a lot of drive-bys.
Because sometimes you can just tell like this one's not for me. And sometimes I worry that I'm passing up some good things because it looks like all baby stuff. And I'm like, what if underneath that like crib is like, a $1 million item?
That never happens though.
I don't know. Maybe
I've got it out of my car and I'm like, why did I get out of my car?
Yeah. So I almost passed by this one that like had a couple of things of like yard furniture. So like some chairs and stuff. Right. And then the only other thing it had was a small table, maybe like a 2 foot by 2 foot table. And on this table was like maybe 5 or 6 items. And they just look like stuff from inside the house. And then I saw 2 like unopened blister packs of like, the plastic packaging of like items. And they look kind of oldish. And I'm like, well, when I see that kind of packaging, I'm assuming like, is it a thermostat? Is it some random as seen on TV item? Is it, smoke detector? Like those are the things I often see at garage sales. So I'm like, I'm going to stop. And I stop and I look at this table, and there's 2 items in these packages and they have stickers on them. One of them says $30, $200 new. And the other one says $25 or $20, something like that. I think it's $20, $75 new. And they had these like little like handwritten stickers on them.
Okay.
And I'm like, well, if this thing's $200 new, they're selling it for 30. Let me look up comps. And I look up comps, and sure enough, used they're selling for like close to 100, and new in box, which this one was, they're selling for like 150,
and
like,
sometimes they're more than the MSRP,
right?
Depending on what it is.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, like this is definitely worth picking up for 30. I look at the other one, and I could probably sell it for like $60. And so I'm like, all right, well, the 2 of these together, $30, $20, $50. And I'm like, it's definitely worth picking these up for $50. But of course, I'm not going to give the first number. So I kind of just walk over and I'm like, what are you thinking if I did both of these? Right. And the lady's like, I don't know. How about $10?
Nice.
Done. Deal. Here's your $10. I'm not even at that point. Like, it's one of those things where, I think I watched some of your stuff and I feel like you would be like, oh, 7. Right. But I'm like, you know what? I was going to try and talk her down to 40. She gave me 10. I'm just going to take it. Could I probably knock a couple more dollars off of it? Yeah. But to me, it's already such a big win. And, I don't want to, sometimes it's not even worth it because I don't want them to change their mind and be like, you know what? No, it's already a good deal. I don't even know if I can let it go for 10. You know what I mean? It's like, you know what? I'm taking it for 10 and I'm going to make a, probably a couple $100 off of these. So it was a nice hustle because I almost passed it. It was one of those, like, I'm like driving. I'm like, yeah, that's not for me. I'm like, the blister packs they look open or unopened. Yeah, I guess I'll stop. And that was one of my big scores of the day.
Nice. Awesome. So, all right. So mine is an interesting one because I it still hasn't, it's not fully complete. And usually I like sharing when things are complete. But here's the thing. Sometimes you buy stuff and you hold, right? You wait for everybody to sell out. And usually it's like this with retail arbitrage. Now, again, I always say only do this if you have the capital, right? Only if you have the capital. So I think I had mentioned at one time I had gone to a TJ Maxx and it was like late at night and I was looking for a certain item. I think it was like towards the end of Q4 and didn't have it. But then I saw, did I share this already? Have I shared this? Do you remember?
Did you talk about this item?
Yeah, the hockey jerseys.
Oh, I'm looking at the.
No,
that's you have written on there.
Old. No, that's from last week.
I was gonna say, like, I know for a fact we talked about this last week.
Yeah, I haven't updated my notes from last week. So I go and there were all these hockey jerseys, and these hockey jerseys they were selling for $15 a piece, but the MSRP was $180, I believe, $180, $150. So I'm like, usually, when you go to TJ Maxx and Ross, you got to be kind of sketch about that because, usually it's way overblown. But These were quality Stitch jerseys. It was a local team. I'm like, yeah, this is gonna sell for good money. But then I went on eBay and I saw that there was tons of them listed, right? Because the easier it is to access something, the greater the competition. So people were like lowballing these. They're selling them for like $60, $70, $50, and which is still good profit if you're paying 15. But I'm like, no, if these are items that on retail would sell for 150, 180, like you got to at least list it for over 100. And then I got onto TikTok and I saw people on TikTok that were like, oh, look, I found these jerseys and I listed on Amazon, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, all right, I'm just going to have to hold. A week later, our good friends, Christian and Adam, the Latin Pickers, always looking out for us, good friends of the podcast. They messaged me like, hey, Orlando, we're at I forget, it was TJ Maxx or Marshalls. They're like, we're here. And we saw these jerseys and they have, I think, like 50 or something of them. And they're like, do you want us to pick these up for you? And, just pay us at cost when we get back to San Diego. And I was like, that was really nice of them, like looking out for me. And so I was like, sure. And, they bought them all and we met up and I paid $500 for the pickup that they did. I paid $500. I don't know how many jerseys, divide that by 15 plus taxes, but it was a lot of jerseys. And so this happened back in January of 2020, January, February, March, maybe it was like April. I don't know. Everything is a blur to me. It was a time during the happening where like, you couldn't, everybody was socially, apart from each other and you couldn't meet up with people. And so, at that time, it was basically a drop off. I gave them the money and it was awesome because, they helped me out. And so I held on to these. And now they're selling I'm selling them on eBay and they're selling for 105, 120, 130 a piece. And I'm making a nice profit. And here's the thing. I expect during Q4 that these are going to fly. Like they're just going to, once we get to, let's say October, I think I have probably 50 plus of these jerseys. So you do the math. If I still sell them for 100 a piece, that's $5,000 out of a $500 to $600 investment, right? And probably $700 or $800 if you count the ones I bought along the way too. It's not bad. So in all of this, hustle the week, one, the networking aspect, right? I had, other people knew what I was looking for. We're not in the same competition. They helped me out. Second, I held on to this. I mean, I truly believe that sometimes with these RAs, I've said this before, with these RA items, retail arbitrage, if you wait until everybody sells out and you're one of the last people on their quality items, you're going to make good money. But that's a risk. That's really risky because you could end up being the one holding the bag and everybody else already sold out and there's no more of a demand for them and you're stuck with the item. So win on multiple levels. Stay tuned. I will update everybody at the end of Q4 if I sold out on all of them.
Yeah. And something like that, I think is good too when it's a jersey as opposed to like a trendy toy.
Oh, true.
Right.
True.
Because the difference is, unless that toy becomes trendy again 20 years from now and it's like, retro, certain things just never really lose, other than the fact that it's like, oh, this is not the current edition that the store is selling, right? Which might make it more appealing. Like, oh, it's a cool jersey that they're not selling at the stands. I want that one. Yeah, those things are definitely going to hold their value probably better than the fingerling. So yeah, I definitely think RA. If people, especially when it's things like maybe clearance and like that's almost the worst is when you go to a Costco or not Costco, you go to Walmart or Target and you see a clearance stuff and you look it up and it's like, man, they've got this down to $5 and it's usually $30. And you look on eBay and they're selling for like $8 on eBay because resellers have gone through and bought out all of them on clearance. But again, that might be the time to hold. It might still be worth buying and holding because eventually they're going to run out of that product at that price. And if people are willing to pay $30 again, you might win. But you got to be careful on what you're picking up and holding on to. But holding on to when it's clearance like that, I think holding on is probably the better way to go. Yeah,
it's risky. I mean, even before we started the podcast, I was sharing Mike one of my bolos for Q4, and I dropped close to $3,000. And it is a trendy item, but it's the third year of the cycle of this trendy item. So Orlando may have lost 3,000 or he may have made 9,000. We'll have to wait and see.
We shall see.
We shall see. Stay tuned. All right. Hey, thank you everyone for your hustle week. Thank you, Troy, Mark, and Clay. Really appreciate that. Check out their Instagrams. Again, Man Treasure is Troy. Tactical Arbitraging is Clay. And Mark Mancuso, well, you can't check out his email, but thank you so much, Mark, for sending that email. Really appreciate you sharing and supporting us. All right. Now, here's what I love about reselling is that if you keep at it and you keep going and you are consistent, like you said, you will continue to grow. And the one place that you will always grow is in knowledge. And I feel like we're just like sounding like a bunch of educators right now, which we are. But I'm telling you, you will make more the longer you're in reselling, unless you are doing things completely wrong and not researching and just buying whatever and going to buy clearance everywhere and hoping you're going to be rich off of clearance. Like, you're going to continue to grow. And the more you know, the more money you're going to make. And I can't tell you, like, right now, like, it's very rare, except for that one YouTube video I showed, like, I dropped 2 weeks ago, that you'll go into a thrift store and not find things, right? Most of the time, you will find, even at garage sales. I remember when I was first reselling, I would go to garage sales, and my friend Kyle would go, and we'd message each other. And we're like, man, there's just nothing at garage sales today. And I would say now that rarely ever happens. I mean, there are some Saturdays where it's like slim pickings. Every once in a while, there'll be a Saturday where there's absolutely nothing to pick up that's profitable. But pretty much for me, every Saturday, it's a very profitable Saturday when I get out there. And I think a lot of it is due to knowledge. I know a lot more, right? Things I would have skipped over 3-4 years ago, now I'll pick up because I know that it's profitable. The way I negotiate, I'm way better negotiating now than I was 4 or 5 years ago. I know, what tactic to use at a certain point in time. I know when I should just go with, like Mike said, just go with it and don't try to haggle anymore and just walk away. I also know when to walk away and not lose money instead of going, you know what? Oh man, I can make some good profit. It's okay to pay a little bit more for this. Sometimes it's like, nope, it's not worth it paying a little more because it's going to sit in my store a long time. It's not going to sell right away. And it's very risky. And so you grow in knowledge and reselling as long as you continue moving.
Yeah. And one of the things that I feel like is becoming almost super trendy, almost popular to self-deprecate in the sense of failure is good. Like failure is knowledge. And it's true. Like people say, I don't fail, I learn and things like that. And I think there's a lot of value to that and there's truth to that. But I think it's almost being overblown. And I worry that it's almost encouraged to just like, who cares? Go at things like just with just reckless ambition, but with no like focus or intent. And so the idea is, well, who cares? I'm just going to fail, and failure is so good. And I think there's truth in the sense of if you're afraid to fail and you never do anything, you're never going to be successful. Mm-hmm. And every time you fail, you can learn lessons from that. But failure isn't the only way to learn lessons. And so I think one of the best ways of approaching it is an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right? That old saying or similar sayings to that. And the more you can gain in knowledge before you fail or make a mistake, and then when you do fail, learn everything you can from that. But don't go out with the intent of, I don't care. I'm just going to kind of recklessly buy things. And if I make mistakes, I make mistakes. But go at it systematically. Try to be intentional about making the best decisions you can make and know that you're probably going to fail. Don't be afraid to fail, but do everything in your power to prevent failure and then learn when the failure does happen. So learn, grow in knowledge, but don't go at it with a sense of, well, I can just do whatever I want. Sometimes it's better to spend a little bit of extra time in the store looking something up, checking comps, spending some time the week before you go out. Like when I've been learning about tools, sometimes I spend, an hour just looking on computers that sold comps and what types of tools and what are these called? How do I speak this lingo? Because I'd rather learn this now than fail after I paid $500 in tools that aren't going to sell, right? So you're going to continue to grow knowledge and you're going to grow from your wins and your losses. But it's better to grow and learn before you fail than after you fail, right? Prevent the failure. So you're going to grow in knowledge, and we talked, you're going to lose, you're going to win. So grow, learn from both of those, but do so wisely, right? Like don't just intentionally, like failure's so good. Like I almost feel like that's the move people are going towards.
No, I know. Gary V is big on that. Like he always says like, I love losing I'm like, nah, I don't love losing.
And again, it's like one of those things like where there's nothing wrong with that. Like you can get to a point where it's like, you know what? If I try 100 things, I'm going really hard at 100 things and I fail at 10 of them, that's fine. And I've learned that those 10 things don't work for me. But then again, because
why go for the 100 things?
Well, I mean, I'm just saying like you're trying to be successful. So you're trying all these things. So there's nothing wrong with that. But I feel like some people take from that, like, well, it's okay to fail 100 times or 99 times. It's like, well, if you can prevent that and maybe you only fail 10% of the time instead of all of the time, you're going to be better off.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of like, if you're consistently failing, you probably need to get out. There's obviously something else that
you haven't learned the lesson you're supposed to learn.
I don't know. I think when you're young, you can continue failing until you learn the lesson you need to learn. When you get older, when you're failing, it's time to get out.
Which might be the lesson you need to learn. This isn't for you. This isn't your cup of tea.
I'm not, but okay. All right. So revenue. Okay. You will grow in revenue. Like it will, again, unless you are, here's the thing. You're right. Like, unless you're learning, like if you keep doing the same thing, if you keep sourcing without looking stuff up, like if you keep buying the same stuff and it's not selling, if you keep, instead of reinvesting the money, you're blowing your money on other things and you're not putting them into your business. So if you're not learning how to ship faster and ship for cheaper, and if you're not learning how to make connections, and as long as you're consistently doing right, what every reseller, I think pretty much every YouTuber says this, right? The idea of like, hey, buy low, sell high. Okay, you should win. And I think that applies pretty much in every avenue of business. If you can buy low, sell high, that is the magic equation to continue in your revenue and grow your revenue. Now, the thing is, replicate that, right? Continue replicating that in your business, continue growing it. So I definitely think you will grow. And here's the last one. And this is one I love the most. I think you're going to grow in the time available to not run your business. And I think that's the next step. This is now my 4th year selling full time. And I would say I don't work as much as I used to in the first year of full time reselling. Not even close. Now, if I kept that momentum, I don't know, maybe I'd have the Lambo. I don't know. Right. I mean, if you follow us on Pure Hustle Podcast the first year on Instagram, man, I was sourcing every day, retail arbitrage every day, sending out boxes every day. I mean, I look back on those in the archives and I'm like, how did I even have the energy to do that? And I think it was because it was new. We were on social media. I was scared out of my mind. I was going to be homeless. Like all those things kept me motivated, and I just kept pushing and pushing and pushing. Now, my 4th year as a full-time reseller, I will say I do not spend as much time doing the things that I was doing before. I am better about sourcing. I have more connections. I don't spend as much time going out there. I probably go to the thrift store once or twice a week, and that's just, sometimes it's for the gram, just because I want to share people like, hey, here's some things to look out for. Here's what to pick up. As far as shipping goes, I probably spend a quarter of the time shipping. I know exactly how to ship. I know where to find things. My organization is far better. Your time will continue to unless you want to keep moving, unless you want to scale a lot more, things will get easier over time. You'll have more time available. Do you find yourself that it's easier to do things now?
All right. I mean, absolutely. I mean, we're about to have a baby here pretty soon, and we know we're going to be putting our store on vacation mode for a little while, and we're kind of just hoping that we don't go into labor as like a couple sales come in, because that might be annoying. But as we get closer, if it ends up being induced, or if we end up having a little bit of time to figure things out before we have to just immediately shut our store down, we know we're going to be okay. Like, we've been able to take vacations, things like that, because we've built up a system where we are pretty confident in the amount of money we're going to make each month, what kind of sales we're going to have. And we can recognize like, hey, if we take a slow month here, if we slow down a little bit, we're going to be fine. And it took time to build that, to understand like, how long is it actually going to take to ship these things, and how many listings can I get done in a day? And can I take a week off without crushing where I'm at and the amount of money that I need to make each month? And once you get to that point where you've got it all figured out, yeah, you can definitely let off the gas a little bit for sure. It's momentum, right? Like once you've got that momentum going, as your store gets bigger, it's like, and more efficient, it's like a bigger snowball rolling down the hill, and it's harder to stop in the sense of it's not going to just come to a complete and utter stop. And I've got to push really hard to get it going again. Like it might slow down. The slope might not be as steep, but that there's still enough momentum going that once I put the gas on the pedal again, we're moving, we're going. And so, yeah, absolutely. And then that opens up time with family and friends and things where you really get to enjoy the fruits of your labor and not just enjoy your labor.
Agreed. So the time will be there, but I will tell you, if you want to level up and you want to go next level, you got to hustle. Hence pure hustle. And like you have to, it's not an option. And we'll end that on that note.
Yeah.
And with that being said, thanks for tuning in. As always, you can follow us on social media. As always, you can support us on buymeacoffee.com/purehustle. And we appreciate every single one of you. And with everything being said, make sure to be real,
be relevant,
and be reselling. Peace.